In Chicago's Oakwood Cemetery, 6-year-old Anna places a daisy on her mother Aya's grave, unaware that Thomas, a stranger mourning nearby, is Aya's ex-husband. Stunned to learn Anna is Aya's daughter, Thomas uncovers a shattering truth. Aya, once Catherine Brooks, fled witness protection to shield him and their secret child from a vengeful kingpin, Darius Kane. As danger closes in, Thomas and Anna race to deliver Aya's hidden evidence to the FBI, forging an unbreakable bond. Through courage and love, they honor Aya's sacrifice, finding a new dawn together. The October wind slithered through Oakwood Cemetery in Chicago, a restless spirit stirring the brittle leaves that carpeted the earth. The sky, bruised with heavy gray clouds, seemed to press down on the world, muffling the distant hum of the city. In the fading light of dusk, a small figure moved along the winding gravel path, her steps deliberate yet hesitant, as if drawn by both love and sorrow. Anna, a 6-year-old black girl, clutched a single daisy in her tiny fist, its delicate white petals trembling in the chilly breeze. Her dark curls bounced beneath a faded red beanie, and her almond-shaped eyes, wide and searching, held a quiet grief too heavy for her years. Her sneakers, scuffed and slightly too big, crunched softly against the leaves, a rhythmic counterpoint to her uneven breaths. 6 months had passed since her mother, Aya, slipped away, leaving Anna with only memories and a silver heart-shaped locket that now hung around her neck, warm against her skin. Anna's small frame paused before a modest headstone, its surface worn but clean, as if someone tended it often. The inscription read, Aya Johnson, beloved mother, 1987-2025. She knelt, her knees sinking into the damp earth, and placed the daisy at the base of the stone with the care of a jeweler handling a priceless gem. I miss you, Mama, she whispered, her voice a fragile thread in the vast silence of the cemetery. Her fingers traced the engraved letters, lingering on Mother, as if she could summon Aya back through sheer will. The daisy, a gift from her grandmother Ruth, was all Anna could offer today, a token of love from a child who'd learned too early that the world could be unkind. Across the path, hidden by a gnarled oak, Thomas Carter stood frozen, his breath catching in his throat. At 32, he was a man shaped by hard work and harder losses, his calloused hands tucked into the pockets of a worn leather jacket. His brown eyes, usually steady, widened as they locked onto the headstone. Aya Johnson. The name hit him like a punch to the chest, stealing the air from his lungs. Aya, his Aya, the woman he'd loved fiercely, married at 25, and lost 7 years ago when she vanished after their 5th anniversary. He'd never known she'd died. The cemetery, a place he'd come to visit his own mother's grave, now felt like a trap sprung by fate. His gaze shifted to Anna, kneeling at the grave, and his heart stuttered. Her dark curls, her delicate features, they were Aya's, mirrored in miniature. A memory flashed. Aya's almond eyes laughing in the sunlight, promising forever. Could this child be? My God, Thomas whispered, the words escaping before he could stop them. The sound, soft as it was, cut through the stillness, and Anna's head snapped up. Her eyes, sharp with a child's instinct for danger, locked onto him. She scrambled to her feet, clutching the locket as if it were a shield. Who are you? She demanded, her voice small but edged with defiance, a spark of Aya's fire in her tone. Thomas raised his hands, palms open, and knelt to her level, his 6-foot frame folding awkwardly to seem less threatening. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I didn't mean to scare you, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I knew your mama, Aya. She was special to me. Anna's eyes narrowed, assessing him with a scrutiny that belied her age. She's my mama, she said, stepping back, her sneakers crunching gravel. The locket glinted in the dim light, and Thomas's breath hitched. He knew that locket. He'd given it to Aya on their wedding day, engraving it with "Forever Yours." How did this child have it? His mind raced, piecing together fragments of a past he thought he'd buried. Aya had told him their baby was lost, a miscarriage that shattered her. She'd left soon after, claiming she needed space to heal. But Anna, with her 6 years in Aya's eyes, stood before him like a living question mark. What's your name? Thomas asked gently, forcing his voice to stay steady. Anna hesitated, her fingers tightening around the locket. Anna, she said finally. Anna Johnson. The name landed like a stone in still water, sending ripples through Thomas's heart. Johnson, Aya's maiden name, the one she'd used before they married. He swallowed hard, his throat dry. I'm Thomas, he said, his eyes never leaving hers. Thomas Carter. I was Aya's husband. Anna's brow furrowed, confusion flickering across her face. Mama didn't have a husband, she said, but her voice wavered as if sensing the weight of his words. Thomas's chest tightened. He wanted to ask 1,000 questions about Aya, about Anna, about the years he'd lost. But the cemetery's silence pressed against them, urging caution. He glanced at the path where an older woman approached, her steps heavy with purpose. Ruth, Anna's grandmother, her face etched with suspicion. Who's this? Ruth demanded, her voice sharp as she reached Anna's side, pulling the girl close. Her eyes, weary from years of struggle, bored into Thomas. Thomas Carter, he said, standing slowly. I was married to Aya. Ruth's expression hardened, her lips pressing into a thin line. But Anna piped up. He knew Mama. Her small hand tugged at Ruth's coat, her trust disarming the tension. Ruth studied Thomas for a long moment, then sighed. We'll talk later, she said, scribbling her number on a scrap of paper and handing it to him. Come on, Anna. As Ruth led Anna away, the girl glanced back, her eyes meeting Thomas's. In that fleeting moment, he saw Aya, her strength, her warmth, her mystery. The daisy lay alone by the headstone, a fragile beacon in the gathering dusk. Thomas's hand closed around the paper in his pocket. Ruth's number, a lifeline to answers he wasn't sure he was ready for. But one truth burned clear. Anna was no stranger. She was a piece of Aya, and maybe, just maybe, a piece of him too. The cemetery gates loomed ahead, but for Thomas, the path forward had just begun to unfold. The Chicago night pressed against Thomas Carter's apartment window, a black canvas streaked with the orange glow of streetlights. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of motor oil and regret, clinging to Thomas's worn leather jacket slung over a chair. He sat on the edge of a sagging couch, elbows on his knees, staring at the scrap of paper in his hand. Ruth's phone number, scrawled in hurried ink, seemed to pulse with possibility and danger. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight, its relentless rhythm mocking his sleeplessness. Anna's face, with Aya's almond eyes, haunted him, her small voice echoing in his mind. She's my mama. Thomas's fingers tightened around the paper, crumpling it slightly. He'd buried Aya's memory years ago, or so he thought. But the cemetery had ripped open that wound, and Anna was the blade. His mind drifted to high school, 17 years old, standing in the crowded cafeteria at Westview High. Aya Brooks, before she was Aya Johnson, stood cornered by 3 girls, their laughter sharp as knives as they mocked her patched jeans. Thomas, a lanky kid from a rough block, had watched from across the room, his jaw tight. He'd always kept his head down, avoiding trouble. But something in Aya's defiant tilt of her chin sparked a fire in him. When one girl shoved her, Thomas crossed the room in seconds, planting himself between Aya and her tormentors. Back off, he'd growled, taking a punch to the jaw that left his ears ringing. The bullies scattered, and Aya's grateful smile, bright, unguarded, changed everything. That smile led to late-night talks, stolen kisses, and a wedding at 25 in a small church with mismatched chairs. But 5 years later, Aya changed. She grew distant, her eyes shadowed with secrets. She claimed a miscarriage broke her, then left, leaving Thomas with a half-empty apartment and a heart full of questions. Now Anna's existence shattered that narrative. 6 years old, the math was too precise, too cruel. Aya had told him their baby was gone, but Anna's birth lined up perfectly with that supposed loss. Thomas's hand trembled as he poured a glass of water, the liquid sloshing over the rim. Had Aya lied? Was Anna his daughter? He remembered Aya's late-night habits in their final year together, checking locks twice, jumping at car horns, whispering about keeping us safe. He'd thought it was grief, but what if it was fear? The locket around Anna's neck, his wedding gift to Aya, was a clue he couldn't ignore. He needed to see Anna again, to understand what Aya had hidden. The next morning, Thomas drove to Ruth's apartment in Englewood, A weathered building with peeling paint and a buzzing intercom. His knuckles rapped on the door, heart pounding like he was 16 again, asking Aya to Theo prom. Ruth answered, her face a mask of suspicion, her gray hair pulled into a tight bun. "What do you want, Mr. Carter?" she asked, arms crossed. "To see Anna," Thomas said, holding up a grocery bag filled with apples and cereal. "And to talk about Aya." Ruth's eyes softened at the groceries, but her voice stayed firm. "She's playing. Wait here." She disappeared inside, leaving the door ajar. Through the gap, Thomas glimpsed Anna sitting cross-legged on a threadbare rug, sketching with a stubby crayon. Her red beanie sat crooked, and her locket glinted in the morning light. She looked up, and her gap-toothed smile broke through his defenses. "Hi, Thomas," she called, waving her drawing. Ruth returned, gesturing him inside. The apartment smelled of coffee and lavender, a stark contrast to the cracked walls and sagging furniture. Anna bounded over, holding out her sketch, a vibrant portrait of Aya with a radiant smile. "That's Mama," she said proudly. Thomas's throat tightened. "She's beautiful, just like you," he managed, kneeling to her level. Anna beamed, then scampered back to her crayons. Ruth watched, her expression unreadable. "You said you were Aya's husband," she began, voice low. "Why'd she never mention you?" Thomas met her gaze. "I don't know. She left me 7 years ago. Said she lost our baby. But Anna, she's 6. I need to know what happened." Ruth sighed, sinking into a chair. "Aya was private. After she got sick, she only said Anna's daddy was gone. We moved a lot. Always for safety," she said. Never explained why. Thomas's pulse quickened. Safety. That word again. "Did she seem scared?" he asked. Ruth nodded slowly. "Sometimes. She checked the street before leaving and kept that locket close. Said it was her anchor." Thomas's eyes flicked to Anna, who hummed softly as she drew. The locket was his anchor too once. "Can I come back?" he asked. Ruth hesitated, then nodded. "Anna likes you, but don't hurt her. She's lost enough." As Thomas drove home, the city blurred past, a maze of concrete and memory. Anna's smile, Aya's locket, Ruth's words. They wove a puzzle he couldn't solve alone. Aya hadn't just left. She'd erased herself from his life, taking a daughter he never knew. Why? The fear in her eyes during their last months together resurfaced, vivid as yesterday. She'd wake at night, staring at the window, whispering, "We're okay, right?" He'd brushed it off, but now it felt like a warning. At a stoplight, he pulled out Ruth's number, his thumb hovering over his phone. Tomorrow he'd call and arrange another visit. Anna deserved more than a stranger's groceries, and he deserved answers. That night, Thomas lay awake, the ceiling a blank slate for his racing thoughts. Anna's face merged with Aya's in his mind, their eyes a shared legacy of love and secrets. If Anna were his daughter, Aya had stolen 6 years from him. But the locket, the moves, the fear, there was more to her departure than betrayal. He clutched the pillow, resolve hardening. He'd find the truth, for Anna, for himself, and for the woman he'd loved, whose shadow still lingered in the spaces between. The Chicago morning broke with a reluctant sun, its pale light filtering through the grimy windows of Thomas Carter's apartment. The air smelled of burnt coffee and motor oil, a reminder of the garage shift he'd barely survived after another sleepless night. Thomas stood at his chipped kitchen counter, gripping a chipped mug, his eyes fixed on the crumpled paper with Ruth's number. Anna's face, those almond eyes so like Aya's, had lodged in his heart like a splinter, sharp and undeniable. He'd spent hours replaying their cemetery encounter, Aya's locket glinting around Anna's neck. Ruth's guarded words about safety. The questions burned. Was Anna his daughter? Why had Aya hidden her? Today he'd see Anna again, determined to bridge the gap between stranger and something more, even if the truth remained elusive. By noon, Thomas pulled up to Ruth's apartment in Englewood, his old pickup rattling against the curb. The building loomed, its faded brick facade a testament to years of neglect. He carried a plastic bag with a toy truck and a pack of crayons, small offerings for a child who'd already lost too much. The intercom buzzed, and Ruth's voice, clipped but less hostile, let him in. The stairwell reeked of mildew, each step creaking under his boots as his pulse quickened. He wasn't just visiting a kid, he was chasing a ghost, Aya's shadow woven into every moment with Anna. Ruth opened the door, her gray eyes assessing him like a judge. "You're back," she said, stepping aside. The apartment was cramped, its walls stained with time, but it held a stubborn warmth, scented with lavender and frying onions. Anna sat on a worn rug, sketching furiously, her red beanie askew. Her locket dangled as she worked, catching the light like a beacon. "Thomas!" she squealed, leaping up, her gap-toothed smile disarming his nerves. She hugged his leg, a fleeting gesture that hit him like a wave. "I drew Mama again," she said, thrusting a paper at him. The sketch showed Aya, her face radiant, surrounded by daisies. Thomas's throat tightened. Aya's smile, captured by a child's hand, was both a gift and a wound. "Beautiful," he said, kneeling to her level. "You've got her eyes, you know." Anna beamed, then tugged him to the rug. "Draw with me." Ruth watched from the kitchen, her silence heavy but no longer hostile. Thomas sat cross-legged, awkward in his work boots, and took a crayon. Anna's chatter filled the room, stories of school, a stray cat she'd named Whiskers, and her favorite song. But beneath her brightness, Thomas saw shadows, her too small jacket, the way she glanced at the door when a car honked outside. "Granny works a lot," Anna confided, shading a daisy. "Mama used to sing to me when I was lonely." The words pierced Thomas. He knew that loneliness, the kind Aya's absence had carved into him. "Want to hear a song your mama loved?" he asked softly. Anna nodded, eyes wide. Thomas cleared his throat, his voice rough but steady, and sang Amazing Grace, Aya's favorite lullaby. The notes trembled in the air, and Anna's face lit up. "You did know her!" she exclaimed, clapping. Ruth paused her cooking, her expression softening, a crack in her armor. Thomas's heart swelled. Singing for Anna felt like reclaiming a piece of Aya, a fragile thread connecting past to present. As Anna returned to her drawing, Thomas joined Ruth in the kitchen, keeping his voice low. "You said Aya moved a lot for safety. What did she mean?" Ruth chopped onions with deliberate force, her knife flashing. "She never explained," she said. "We'd settle somewhere. Milwaukee, Cleveland. Then she'd get jumpy. Said we had to go. Kept that locket close, like it held her secrets." Thomas's eyes drifted to Anna, the locket glinting as she hummed. "Was she scared of someone?" he pressed. Ruth's hands stilled. "Maybe. She'd watch the news, check the locks. Once she saw a man on the street and went pale. Next day we were gone." Thomas's stomach twisted. Aya's fear in their final year together, her late-night pacing, her whispered, "We're okay, right?" echoed Ruth's words. This wasn't grief, it was something darker. "Anna's been through enough," Ruth said, her voice a warning. "If you're here, be here for her, not your ghosts." Thomas nodded, but his mind raced. Aya hadn't just left him. She'd been running. From what? He glanced at Anna, who'd started a new sketch, a house with 3 stick figures. "That's you, me, and Granny," she said shyly. Thomas's chest ached. She was building a world with him in it, unaware of the questions tearing him apart. Before leaving, Thomas gave Anna the toy truck, her eyes sparkling as she zoomed it across the rug. "Come back soon?" she asked, her voice small. "Promise," he said, ruffling her beanie. Ruth handed him a cup of coffee to go, a silent truce. "She likes you," she said. "Don't mess it up." Thomas nodded, the weight of her trust grounding him. As he drove home, the city's neon lights blurred, Anna's drawing tucked in his jacket. Her loneliness mirrored his own, a shared scar from Aya's absence. But the locket, the moves, the fear, they hinted at a truth he couldn't ignore. That night, Thomas sat on his couch, Anna's sketch beside him. Aya's secrecy wasn't betrayal, it was survival. Anna was the key, her existence a puzzle piece that didn't fit the story Aya had told. He pulled out his phone, Ruth's number glowing on the screen. Tomorrow he'd visit again, not just for Anna, but to chase the shadow Aya left behind. The locket's glint, Anna's eyes, Aya's fear. They were threads in a tapestry he was only beginning to unravel. For now, he'd be the man Anna needed, even if the truth threatened to break him. The Chicago dusk bled crimson across the skyline, casting jagged shadows over the diner where Thomas Carter sat, his calloused hands wrapped around a cold coffee mug. The air smelled of grease and pie, but the knot in his stomach killed any appetite. Across from him, Marcus Bell, a grizzled private investigator with a face like weathered leather, slid a manila folder across the sticky table. Thomas's pulse hammered, each beat a reminder of the questions that had kept him awake since meeting Anna. Was she his daughter? Why had Aya hidden her? The locket around Anna's neck, the fear Ruth described, Aya's whispered safety. They were fragments of a puzzle Thomas couldn't solve alone. Tonight, Marcus promised answers, and the weight of that promise pressed against Thomas's chest like a storm cloud. I think Aya lied about the miscarriage, Thomas had told Marcus 2 days ago, his voice low in the diner's hum. Anna's 6. The timing fits. I need to know if she's mine and why Aya left. Marcus, an ex-cop with eyes that missed nothing, had nodded. Give me a week. Got anything of hers? Thomas handed over a hairbrush from his apartment. One Aya left behind, its strands a faint echo of her presence. Now, as Marcus tapped the folder, Thomas braced himself. You're not gonna like this, Marcus said, his voice gravelly. But you're right. Anna's yours. Thomas's breath caught, the diner's clatter fading to a dull roar. He opened the folder, his hands trembling. A DNA report stared back, cold and clinical, confirming Anna Johnson as his daughter, with a hair sample from the brush matching her school medical records. Aya didn't miscarry, Marcus continued, leaning back. She hid the pregnancy and gave birth 6 years ago. Birth certificate lists her as the mother. No father named. Thomas's vision blurred, anger and relief colliding. Anna, with her gap-toothed smile and Aya's eyes, was his flesh and blood. Aya had stolen for 6 years. But why? He forced himself to focus, his voice hoarse. There's more, isn't there? Marcus's eyes narrowed, a predator sizing up prey. Plenty. Aya Johnson wasn't her real name. She was Catherine Brooks, born in Detroit, 1987. Changed her identity 8 years ago, right before she left you. Thomas's mug slipped, coffee splashing the table. Catherine Brooks. The name was a stranger's, yet it fit the woman who'd grown secretive, checking locks, waking at night with a gasp. Marcus slid a photo from the folder, a younger Aya labeled Catherine Brooks, her face defiant, wearing the locket Anna now wore. How? Thomas managed, his voice a whisper. Marcus leaned in, voice dropping. Catherine witnessed a gang murder at 22. Darius Kane, a kingpin running drugs and guns in Detroit. She testified against him in a federal case, put him away for life, or so they thought. Feds placed her in witness protection as Aya Johnson. She moved to Chicago, met you, and married you under her new name. But when she got pregnant, something spooked her. My guess? Kane's crew was sniffing around. She left to protect you and the kid. Thomas's mind reeled, Aya's final year with him flashing in fragments, her flinches at shadows, her insistence on safety. She hadn't broken. She'd been running. Protect me? Thomas said, bitterness creeping in. She lied, vanished, raised my daughter without me. Marcus shrugged, unapologetic. Witness protection's a cage. You don't get to explain. She kept you alive. Maybe Anna too. Thomas's fingers traced the photo, Aya's, Catherine's eyes staring back. He remembered their last night, her packing a bag, tears in her eyes as she said, I'm broken, Thomas. I need to go. He'd begged her to stay, but she'd slipped away, leaving only the locket's memory. Now Anna wore it, a tether to a truth Aya had buried. There's a safe deposit box, Marcus added, sliding over a bank record. First Chicago Bank, under Aya Johnson's name. Might hold answers, letters, documents. Who knows? You'll need ID to access it. Thomas nodded, his mind racing. Anna's locket, Ruth's stories, now this box. They were breadcrumbs leading to Aya's hidden life. He thought of Anna's drawing, the stick figure family with him in it. She deserved a father, not a ghost chasing secrets. Anything else? He asked. Marcus's jaw tightened. Kane's up for parole soon. If he's got people looking, They might know Aya's dead. Anna could be a loose end. The words landed like a fist, fear spiking through Thomas's veins. He left the diner, the folder tucked under his jacket, the city's neon glow a blur. Driving to Ruth's, he stopped at a corner store, buying a soccer ball for Anna. He needed to see her, to ground himself in her reality before the past swallowed him whole. At the apartment, Anna greeted him with a squeal, her beanie lopsided as she kicked the ball across the rug. "Play with me," she demanded, her laughter a balm to his churning thoughts. Ruth watched, her eyes softer now, offering him a nod. "She's been happier since you came around," she said quietly. As Anna giggled, Thomas's gaze fell on her locket, glinting in the lamplight. It held a secret, maybe a key to the safe deposit box. He knelt, bouncing the ball. "That locket's special, huh?" he said casually. Anna nodded, touching it. "Mama said it's magic." Thomas's heart clenched. Magic or not, it was a link to Aya's truth. He'd visit again tomorrow, but first he'd call the bank. Anna's smile, Aya's lies, Cain's shadow. They were a storm brewing, and Thomas was caught in its eye. For now he kicked the ball back, letting Anna's joy anchor him, even as the folder's weight burned against his chest. The Chicago night was a restless beast, its wind howling through the cracks of Thomas Carter's apartment, rattling the windows like a warning. He sat at his scarred kitchen table, the manila folder from Marcus Bell splayed open, its contents a map to a life he'd never known. The DNA report confirming Anna as his daughter lay beside a photo of Aya, Catherine Brooks, her defiant eyes staring from a past marked by danger. Thomas's fingers traced the image, the weight of Marcus's words pressing against his skull. Aya had been in witness protection, hiding from a kingpin named Darius Cain. She'd left to protect him and Anna, their daughter, sacrificing their marriage to keep them alive. The revelation was a blade cutting through 7 years of grief and betrayal, leaving Thomas raw and unmoored. The locket Anna wore, his wedding gift to Aya, glimmered in his memory, a clue to a truth still half buried. Sleep eluded him, the clock's ticks mocking his racing thoughts. Aya's final months with him replayed in vivid fragments, her furtive glances out their apartment window, her hands trembling as she locked the door, her whispered, "We're okay, right?" He'd thought it was the miscarriage, but now he saw it. Fear, not sorrow, had driven her away. Marcus's warning about Cain's parole loomed, a shadow over Anna's gap-toothed smile. Thomas's gaze fell on the bank record in the folder, a safe deposit box at First Chicago Bank under Aya Johnson's name. It could hold answers. Why Aya ran, what she'd left behind. He needed to see Anna, to confirm the locket's role, to ground himself in her reality before the past consumed him. Morning brought a brittle dawn, the city shrouded in mist as Thomas drove to Ruth's apartment in Englewood. His pickup's engine growled, mirroring the storm in his chest. He carried a small soccer ball, a peace offering for Anna, but his mind was on the locket. Ruth's building loomed, its faded brick a silent witness to their struggles. The intercom buzzed, and Ruth's voice, less guarded now, let him in. The stairwell's mildew scent stung his nose, but anticipation drowned it out. Anna wasn't just a child he was helping. She was his daughter, a truth that both anchored and terrified him. Ruth opened the door, her gray bun tight, her eyes softer than before. "She's in her room," she said, nodding toward a narrow hallway. The apartment's warmth, lavender and frying bacon, clashed with its worn walls and sagging couch. Anna sat on her bed, a shoebox of crayons spilled across a faded quilt, sketching a daisy field. Her red beanie sat crooked, and the locket gleamed against her sweater. "Thomas!" she squealed, bounding into his arms. Her hug, fierce and unhesitating, cracked something in Thomas's chest. "I drew you," she said, holding up a sketch of a stick figure man with a soccer ball. "That's me?" he asked, voice thick. Anna nodded, her smile a beacon in his storm. They played in the cramped living room, kicking the soccer ball across the rug. Anna's laughter filled the space, but Thomas's eyes kept drifting to the locket. It was identical to the one he'd given Aya, engraved with "Forever Yours." Marcus's photo of Catherine Brooks wearing it burned in his mind. Was it a keepsake or something more? As Anna chased the ball, Thomas knelt beside her. "That locket's special, huh?" he said, keeping his tone light. Anna touched it, her fingers small but sure. "Mama said it's magic. It's got a secret inside." Thomas's pulse spiked. "A secret?" Anna nodded, popping the locket open to reveal a tiny silver key, its surface etched with a faint number. 472. "Mama said it's for something important," she whispered, eyes wide. Thomas's breath caught. The key matched the safe deposit box number in Marcus's file. Aya had entrusted it to Anna, a child carrying her mother's final secret. He forced a smile, ruffling Anna's beanie. "That's special. Keep it safe, okay?" Anna nodded, closing the locket with care. Ruth watched from the kitchen, her knife pausing mid-chop. "You're good with her," she said, a grudging approval in her tone. Thomas stood, his mind racing. "Ruth, did Aya ever mention a bank? A safe deposit box?" Ruth's brow furrowed. "No, but she was private. Always said Anna's locket was her heart's keeper." Thomas nodded, the pieces clicking. The locket, the key, the box. They were Aya's lifeline, now his to follow. As they ate lunch, grilled cheese sandwiches, Anna insisted on helping make. Thomas studied his daughter. Her two small shoes, her careful bites, spoke of a life shaped by scarcity. Ruth's long shifts at the diner left Anna alone too often, her brightness a shield against loneliness. Thomas's resolve hardened. Whether the box held answers or danger, he'd protect her. "Can I come back tomorrow?" he asked, clearing the plates. Anna clapped. "Yes, we'll play more." Ruth's nod was curt but warm. "You're welcome, but don't stir up trouble." Thomas met her gaze. "I won't. I just want to be here for her." Driving home, the city's gray sprawl mirrored his mood. The folder in his passenger seat felt alive, its secrets pulsing. Aya, Catherine, had lived a double life. Her testimony against Cain a heroic act that cost her everything. The locket's key was a bridge to her truth, but Cain's parole loomed, a ticking clock. Thomas gripped the wheel, Anna's drawing tucked in his jacket. Her trust, her laughter, were gifts he hadn't earned but wouldn't betray. He'd call the bank tomorrow, verify the box, but first he'd return to Anna. She was his daughter and no shadow, not Cain's, not Aya, would take her from him. The road stretched ahead, a path into a past he was only beginning to understand. But for Anna, he'd face it all. The Chicago morning was a shroud of fog, the city skyline swallowed by a damp haze that clung to Thomas Carter's skin as he drove through Englewood. His pickup truck rattled, the engine's growl a faint echo of the turmoil in his chest. Beside him, Anna sat buckled in, her small hands clutching a new soccer ball, her red beanie slightly askew. The silver locket around her neck glinted, its tiny key, number 472, burning in Thomas's mind. Yesterday's revelation from Marcus Bell had turned his world inside out. Anna was his daughter, and Aya, his lost love, was Catherine Brooks, a woman in witness protection hiding from a kingpin named Darius Cain. The safe deposit box at First Chicago Bank, linked to that key, promised answers to Aya's secrets, why she'd fled, what she'd left behind. But Marcus's warning about Cain's looming parole cast a shadow over every hope, urging Thomas to act fast. Convincing Ruth had been a battle. "You're taking her to a bank," she'd snapped, her gray eyes sharp with distrust. Thomas explained the key, the box, and Aya's hidden life, his voice steady despite the stakes. "It's what Aya wanted," he'd said, showing her Marcus's file. Ruth relented, but her warning lingered. "Keep her safe, or you'll answer to me." Now, as Anna hummed softly, oblivious to the weight of their errand, Thomas's hands tightened on the wheel. The bank was a step toward truth, but also danger. Cain's reach, even from prison, felt like a noose tightening around them. First Chicago Bank loomed downtown, its stone facade cold and imposing under the fog. Thomas parked, his eyes scanning the street for anyone out of place. Anna hopped out, her sneakers scuffing the pavement, the soccer ball tucked under her arm. "Is this where Mama's secret is?" she asked, her almond eyes wide with curiosity. Thomas knelt, forcing a smile. "Maybe, sweetheart. Stay close, okay?" She nodded, slipping her hand into his, her trust a lifeline in the storm of his thoughts. Inside, the bank's marble lobby echoed with hushed voices and the clack of heels. Thomas approached the counter, presenting his ID and Aya's death certificate, claiming his right as her husband. The manager, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses, eyed Anna curiously, but led them to a private vault room. The safe deposit box sat on a steel table, unremarkable yet heavy with promise. Anna stood close, her locket glinting as she clutched Thomas's sleeve. The manager inserted his key, then stepped back. Thomas's heart pounded as he slid Anna's key, taken carefully from the lock, into the lock. It clicked and the box opened with a soft creak. Inside lay a manila envelope, a USB drive, and a stack of Polaroids. Thomas's hands trembled as he reached for the envelope, marked simply, Thomas in Aya's elegant script. He glanced at Anna, who watched with solemn intensity, as if sensing the moment's weight. "What's that?" she asked, pointing to the envelope. "Something your mama left for us," Thomas said, his voice thick. He opened it, revealing a single sheet of paper. Aya's words leapt from the page, each stroke a dagger to his heart. "Thomas, if you're reading this, you found Anna. I'm sorry for the lies. I was Catherine Brooks, hiding from Darius Kane after testifying against him. I left to protect you and our daughter. Anna is your miracle, our miracle. The USB has evidence to keep Kane locked up. Take it to Agent Laura Mitchell, FBI. She's the only one I trust. I loved you always. Be Anna's father now." Aya. Thomas's vision blurred, tears burning as Aya's voice seemed to echo in the sterile room. She'd loved him, chosen him, but fear had torn them apart. Anna tugged his sleeve. "Is Mama okay?" she asked, her voice small. Thomas knelt, pulling her close. "She's watching over us, sweetheart," he said, his voice breaking. "She was so brave." The Polaroids spilled from the envelope, snapshots of Aya's hidden life, her pregnant, glowing in a sunlit park. Cradling newborn Anna, her face radiant with love. Thomas's chest ached. Aya had carried their daughter alone, shielding her from a world of threats. The USB drive, small and black, felt heavy in his palm. He plugged it into his phone briefly, revealing encrypted files, financial records, names, dates, evidence of Kane's ongoing crimes gathered by Aya at great risk. Thomas's resolve hardened. This was Aya's legacy, her fight, now his to finish. As they left the vault, Anna clutched the Polaroids, her fingers tracing Aya's face. "Mama looks happy here," she said softly. Thomas nodded, but his eyes scanned the lobby, a prickle of unease crawling up his spine. Outside, a black sedan idled across the street, its tinted windows impenetrable. His grip on Anna's hand tightened. "Let's go," he said, hurrying her to the truck. The sedan didn't follow, but its presence lingered like a threat. Back at Ruth's, Thomas sat Anna down, showing her the Polaroids. "These are yours," he said. "Your mama wanted you to have them." Anna's eyes shone, but she hugged him fiercely. "You're staying, right?" she asked. "Always," Thomas promised, his voice firm despite the fear gnawing at him. Driving home, the USB burned in his pocket, a ticking bomb. Marcus's call came as he parked, his voice grim. "Kane's parole hearing is in 3 days. His crew's active, might know Aya's gone. Anna's not safe." Thomas's blood ran cold. The sedan, the box, Aya's evidence, it was all connected. He'd protect Anna, no matter the cost. But the bank had opened more than a box. It had unleashed a war Aya had fought alone. Thomas glanced at Anna's drawing in his jacket, her stick-figure family now his to defend. Tomorrow he'd plan, but tonight he held Aya's words close, her love a shield against the gathering storm. The Chicago night was a predator, its darkness coiling around the city like smoke, every shadow a potential threat. Thomas Carter sat in the driver's seat of his pickup truck, parked in a desolate alley behind a nondescript apartment building in South Shore. The engine ticked softly, cooling in the damp air, but Thomas's nerves were a live wire, sparking with urgency. Beside him, Anna slept, her small frame curled against the door, her red beanie slipping over her curls. The silver locket gleamed at her throat, a reminder of Aya's secrets now in Thomas's hands. The safe deposit box's contents, a letter, Polaroids, in a USB drive with evidence against Darius Kane. The kingpin Aya had testified against as Catherine Brooks. Marcus Bell's warning echoed in his mind. Kane's parole hearing was days away, and his crew might already be hunting Anna, Aya's daughter, Thomas's daughter, as a loose end. The black sedan outside the bank yesterday had been no coincidence. It was a warning, and Thomas wasn't waiting for the next one. Moving Ruth and Anna to a safe house had been a grim necessity. Ruth, her face etched with exhaustion, had resisted at first, her voice sharp in her Englewood apartment. "You're dragging us into your mess," she'd accused, clutching a frying pan like a weapon. Thomas showed her Aya's letter, the USB's encrypted files, and Marcus's photo of Kane's scarred henchman. "This is Aya's fight, Ruth. She died to keep Anna safe. I'm finishing it." Ruth's eyes softened at Aya's handwriting, but her nod was reluctant. "If anything happens to my grandbaby, you're done," she warned. Now in the safe house, a cousin's sparsely furnished apartment, Ruth unpacked a duffel bag in the kitchen, her silence heavy with worry. Thomas carried Anna inside, laying her on a creaky couch, her soccer ball tucked under her arm. The apartment smelled of dust and old paint, its windows boarded against prying eyes. Thomas checked the locks, his movements methodical, a habit born from years in rough neighborhoods. Anna stirred, blinking up at him. "Where are we?" she asked, her voice small but steady. Thomas knelt, brushing a curl from her face. "A safe place, sweetheart. Somewhere your mama would want us to be." Anna's eyes, so like Aya's, searched his. "Are bad people after us?" The question, blunt and fearless, hit Thomas like a punch. He hesitated, then chose honesty. "Your mama was brave, fighting some bad folks. I'm keeping you safe, just like she did." Anna nodded, clutching her locket. "Mama taught me to be brave, too." Thomas's heart clenched. At 6, Anna shouldn't know this kind of fear. But Aya's life on the run had shaped her resilience. "We need a secret word," he said, keeping his tone light. "If anything happens, only trust someone who knows it." Anna's face lit up, a spark of adventure in her eyes. "Daisy," she said, touching the locket. "Like Mama's flower." Thomas smiled, memorizing the word. "Dias, why is it? Don't tell anyone unless I say so." Anna mimed, zipping her lips, her trust in him a weight he vowed to carry. As Ruth brewed coffee, Thomas stepped onto the balcony, scanning the street below. The neighborhood was quiet, but his instincts screamed caution. Aya's letter had laid bare her sacrifice. She'd left to shield him and Anna from Kane's wrath, her witness protection identity as Catherine Brooks a fragile shield. The USB's evidence, financial records tying Kane's gang to ongoing crimes, could lock him away for good, but only if Thomas reached Agent Laura Mitchell, the FBI contact Aya trusted. He texted Marcus, arranging a secure call. "Safe house secure," he typed. "Need Mitchell's contact ASAP." Marcus's reply was swift. "Working on it. Kane crew is as active. Watch your back." Midnight brought a chill, the safe house's silence broken by a low rumble. Thomas peered through a boarded window, his breath catching as a black sedan crawled past, its headlights off. A street lamp caught the driver's face, scarred, unmistakable from Marcus's case file. "Kane's man." Thomas's pulse roared, his hand gripping the knife in his pocket. The sedan lingered, then vanished into the night, but its message was clear. They'd been found. He woke Ruth, keeping his voice low. "We're watched. Stay alert." Ruth's jaw tightened, but she nodded, moving to Anna's side. Thomas sat by the couch watching Anna sleep, her locket rising with each breath. Aya's Polaroids tucked in his jacket showed her cradling Anna, her love fierce despite the danger. He'd failed Aya once, letting her slip away without fighting harder. He wouldn't fail their daughter. Marcus called at dawn, his voice grim. "Mitchell's reachable, but Kane's parole is tomorrow. His crew's desperate might hit before he's out. Stay low." Thomas's stomach twisted. The USB was a bomb, and time was running out. As Anna woke, she drew Aya's face on a scrap of paper, her crayon steady. "Mama's watching us, right?" she asked, her voice soft. Thomas nodded, his throat tight. "Always." Anna's resilience, her trust fueled him. He'd get the USB to Mitchell, end Kane's threat, but first he'd keep Anna safe. The sedan's shadow lingered, a predator circling. Thomas checked the locks again, Aya's letter in his pocket. A vow. No one would touch his daughter. The safe house was a fortress, fragile but his, and he'd defend it with everything he had. The Chicago noon sun burned through the morning's haze, casting sharp shadows across Grant Park's bustling plaza, where Thomas Carter stood, his heart a drumbeat of dread and resolve. Anna's small hand gripped his, her red beanie pulled low, her locket tucked beneath a new jacket he'd bought to mask her silhouette. The USB drive in his pocket, loaded with Aya's evidence against Darius Kane, felt like a live grenade. Thomas's eyes scanned the crowd, tourists snapping photos, vendors hawking hot dogs, joggers weaving through. But every face was a potential threat. Last night's sighting of Kane's scarred henchman at the safe house had cemented the danger. Kane's parole hearing was today, and his crew was closing in, hunting Anna, Thomas's daughter, as a final loose end. Today, he'd hand the evidence to Agent Laura Mitchell, the FBI contact Aya trusted, and end this nightmare. Or die trying. Marcus Bell's call at dawn had set the plan. Meet Mitchell at noon in the plaza's southeast corner, near the Buckingham Fountain. She's clean, Marcus had said, his voice clipped. But Kane's people are desperate. Watch for tails. Thomas had arrived early, parking his pickup blocks away, walking Anna through side streets to avoid notice. Now Anna clutched her soccer ball, her almond eyes darting with the vigilance Aya had taught her. "Is this where we help Mama?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tension. Thomas knelt, forcing a smile. "Yes, sweetheart. We're finishing her fight. Stay close, and if I say Daisy, stick with me." Anna nodded, her trust a lifeline in the chaos of his thoughts. At precisely noon, a woman in a gray blazer approached, her silver-streaked hair pulled tight, her posture radiating authority. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice low, her eyes flicking to Anna. "I'm Laura Mitchell, FBI. You have Aya's evidence?" Thomas nodded, his hand hovering over his pocket. "You knew her as Catherine Brooks," he said, testing her. Mitchell's gaze softened. She was a hero. Her testimony buried Kane. "Let's make sure it sticks." Anna tugged Thomas's sleeve, her voice a whisper. "She's okay, right?" Thomas squeezed her hand, reassured by Mitchell's knowledge. He pulled the USB, sealed in an envelope, and handed it over. "Everything's there. Financials, names, Kane's operations," he said. Mitchell tucked it into her bag, her eyes scanning the plaza. Aya was brilliant. This'll lock him away for good. A glint of movement caught Thomas's eye. A black SUV pulling up at the plaza's edge, its tinted windows glinting like predator eyes. Two men stepped out, one with a scar slashing his cheek, the same face from Marcus's file. Thomas's blood froze. "Daisy," he whispered, the code word a signal to Anna. Her hand tightened in his, her body tensing but calm, Aya's courage in her veins. Mitchell's posture shifted, her hand brushing her jacket where a holster hid. "Trouble," she muttered, nodding toward the men. "Get Anna to the fountain's west side. There's a service exit. My team's nearby." Thomas hesitated, Aya's trust in Mitchell warring with his instinct to run. "Daisy," Mitchell said softly, her eyes steady. The code word shared only with Anna sealed his trust. Aya had prepared her for this. Thomas guided Anna through the crowd, his heart pounding as the scarred man's gaze locked onto them. The fountain's mist cooled his face, but sweat beaded his brow. "Keep moving," he whispered, weaving past a group of tourists. Anna stayed close, her soccer ball a shield against fear. Behind, the men pushed through, their steps deliberate. Mitchell signaled, and two plainclothes agents emerged, closing in on the henchman. A shout rang out, the scarred man reaching for his waistband, but the agents tackled him, cuffs flashing in the sun. The second man bolted, vanishing into the crowd. Thomas exhaled, pulling Anna behind the fountain. "We're okay," he said, his voice shaking. Anna hugged him, her locket pressing against his chest. "You kept your promise," she whispered. Mitchell joined them, her face grim but triumphant. "My team's got the leader. The USB's secure. We'll bury Kane." Thomas nodded, relief flooding him, but Anna's safety was his only measure of victory. They left the plaza, Mitchell's agents escorting them to his truck. Days later, Marcus confirmed Kane's parole was revoked, his gang dismantled by Aya's evidence. Thomas, Anna, and Ruth returned to Ruth's apartment, the safe house no longer needed. 3 months later, Thomas's apartment in Englewood buzzed with life. Anna's drawings, daisies, Aya's face, stick figure families, adorned the walls, a testament to their new home. Thomas had adopted Anna, his name now on her birth certificate, fulfilling Aya's wish. On Aya's birthday, they drove to Oakwood Cemetery, the April sun warm against the gravestones. Anna, in a new dress, carried a daisy, her locket gleaming. The headstone, updated to Aya Johnson, Catherine Brooks, heroic mother, stood proud. Anna placed the daisy gently, her fingers lingering. "Think Mama's proud?" she asked, her eyes shining. Thomas lifted her onto his shoulders, his heart full. "She's smiling down on you, kiddo," he said, his voice steady. They walked back, Anna's laughter mingling with the rustle of leaves. Ruth joined them for Sunday dinner, her stern face softened by Anna's chatter. Thomas watched his daughter, Aya's courage and love alive in her every move. The USB, the danger, the shadows, they'd faded, replaced by a family forged through loss. Aya's letter, now framed in his bedroom, was a reminder. Be Anna's father. He was, and always would be. As Anna kicked her soccer ball across the grass, Thomas smiled. Aya's legacy, a light guiding them into a future they'd built together. Thank you for joining Anna and Thomas's heartfelt journey. What moved you most about their story of love, secrets, and redemption? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more emotional stories. Until next time, stay inspired and keep sharing the love. See you soon.